Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my reviews of Doctor Who Season 20, starting with Story 1, Arc of Infinity. And yeah, this is another not so good one. Oh boy, and potentially worst story of the classic series to feature the Time Lords, ? Excluding Colony in Space. Maybe. This is one of the Trial of the Time Lord ones. Excluding Colony in Space, because Colony in Space is by far the worst story to feature the Time Lords. Sorry, End of Time haters. It's not that one, but actually no, Hellbent's worse than Colony in Space. Hellbent, then Colony in Space. So sorry, End of Time haters. Colony in Space and Hellbent are worse. So yeah. But Arc of Infinity, after Colony in Space, could this be the next worst classic Time Lord story? Well, maybe. Plot sees Omega, although the Doctor doesn't know it's Omega until the end of Part 3. In fact, I don't even think it's revealed to be Omega until about Part 2 or Part 3. So anyway, Omega is trying to return back to our universe again, and he's got help from a Time Lord who we don't find out who until I think Part 3. It might be the end of Part 2. But a traitor on Gallifrey, and he's trying to bond with a Time Lord to get through to Earth, and he bonds with the Doctor, who's currently travelling with Nyssa. And hijinks happens. Meanwhile, we follow these two boys in Amsterdam, but there's actually a point to following these two boys in Amsterdam. They're not just two random characters who get caught up in the action. As Omega's in Amsterdam, as that's the key point of the Arc of Infinity, which he needs to cross in order to get back into our universe. And there is a connection with these two boys to a Doctor Who character who has appeared before and will be coming back in this story. We're going to get to that in Part 2. But meanwhile, the Gallifrey is also on red alert after detecting this presence, and so they have the Doctor brought in. And I do have to say, the Chancellor guards, they're just pricks, really. Yeah, as soon as the Doctor leaves the waiting area, let's go and shoot him. Let's go and shoot him. No, Doctor, wait. We need you to go back to the waiting area so we can wait until you're brought to the High Councillors. The problem with the Chancellor Guards is that they shoot first, ask questions, or do anything else later. Preferably very, very much later, like next week. What they're supposed to be doing that second, they're waiting a week to do. And what they're not supposed to be doing, they're doing without a hesitation. Even if they're following orders, they don't seem to be hesitating. Plus, Commander Maxfield, played by future Dr. Colin Baker, seems to be having a whale of a time with whatever he's doing. Though I do give credit to Colin Baker for enjoying said role. And honestly, for starters, I'm glad he would go on to enjoy being the Doctor in 2 years' time. 83. No, a year and a bit's time. And secondly, he seems to be getting pretty weak writing and directing even before he was the Doctor in the show. Yeah, and this is coming from someone who likes season 22. But yeah, that's the thing. And I have a big problem with the Time Lords being portrayed here. It was not the portrayal; it's actually the direction. They're just sitting down and talking. Well, that's fine. But you've got the president sit. Let's see you sit here, and then on my left-hand side, which is your right, probably you're watching. Maybe. Might be your left as well. Yeah. But anyway, point is, you got his on the president's left. You got some seats for the rest of the High Council, and they're just looking. They've got a view of the entire room, which is pretty much blank, to be honest. And whenever they're discussing with each other stuff, they're just talking out loud, but they're not really looking at the person they're talking to or addressing the rest of the council. The only person who they probably could address is the president, unless they're the ones on the slightly higher level looking down. But still, that still doesn't make any difference. The president's the only one. Anyone else in the room are probably the only ones. But when it's between themselves, it's very awkward. I honestly prefer the tables, the round the table conversations we get in the Five Doctors and the End of Time Part 2 and Hellbent even, because at least they are sitting around the table and they're talking exposition, politics, blood, whatever. They're talking Time Lord stuff, but they're actually being able to look at each other when doing it. They're able to turn and look at each other, whilst in this story, they're just sitting there talking, but not really looking at each other, apart from maybe the president and maybe the guards, the doctor and Nyssa, when they're in the room. But in terms of each other, no. So honestly, the table stuff, the table conversations are more interesting because you can get a bit more invested in the tongues because they're trying to convince their peers of this stuff, whilst here they're just talking. And it's not even that interesting. And is there really no other way to get this Omega stuff out of the Doctor other than killing him? And didn't they realise that it was a possibility that killing the Doctor might get Omega into the universe? It might help him. It might be all part of this plan. It might be a trap. They didn't think it through. They were told to to think about something else. They were asked if they were sure there was no other way. Yet they were certain, but I don't think they honestly thought it through. Or at least didn't think of any potential ways it could backfire on them in any way other than the Doctor being killed. I mean, they realised that, but other than that, they didn't think of any potential backfires that might happen. They thought this was the one and only way. No consequences besides one really cool Time Lord being killed, more or less. But yeah. So they're pretty idiots, and yeah, that's another thing I don't like about the Time Lords being in this story. Oh, Johnny Byrne's not written the Time Lords well. Neither the Time Lords nor their Chancellor and the Chancellor Guards. So let's say Gallifreyans in total. Johnny Byrne can't write Gallifreyans that well. I mean, Chancellor Guards are already shoot first, ask questions later types of chaps. But on this occasion, they seem to be, even like I said, doing ask questions or do something that they're supposed to be doing first next week, as opposed to just later in the day, perhaps. So yeah, big problems with the Gallifreyan stuff in the first 3 episodes. It's not so bad in the 4th episode, but there isn't that much of it in the 4th episode. We're more focused on the Earth stuff. Speaking of Earth stuff, it's time to return to Earth. Amsterdam, to be precise. But yeah, also part 1, it keeps cutting back and forth between the different locations, and that's something that the classic series, especially around this time, seems to be doing. It keeps going to different scenes, but some scenes felt like they could have just carried on from the previous time we saw them. It feels like they just put another scene in between and just cut a bit of time out so that the next scene could have a better shot, or look different when it comes to editing. It's hokey storytelling, both as a script and visual execution, and it's hokey editing. And they do it a lot in the classic series, especially in the 80s, and to be fair, also in the 70s quite often as well. 60s, it was a bit more very studio-based and black and white, and a bit more simple to make, so it wasn't as often. But once it moved to when it moved to the 70s and 80s, when the colour, more better filming techniques and editing, visual effects and location work, and even some of the new series stories may do this occasionally. Maybe I'm not certain. They might blend it in a bit better with the new series, but certainly in the 70s and 80s too, especially in the 80s, it can be a bit contrived. In late 70s as well, late 70s, 80s, but something that's happening quite a lot around this time, but is still something that affects the entire 2 decades. It might be a way of storytelling, but it feels very contrived and messy and hokey. Anyway, back on Earth, it turns out that one of the boys is the cousin of Tegan, and he's been kidnapped by Omega, so the other boy goes to meet Tegan and tells her the story, and they eventually re-find Omega and his associate, who seems to be another one of his antimatter creatures, just but not as cool as not as useful as the gel gloves. I wouldn't say it's cool, actually. They both look stupid. The Doctor seems to know what it is, although how, I don't know. Anyway, so Tegan and her cousin and his friend are captives of Omega, and yeah, eventually Tegan's is made as sort of a thing to make the Doctor not interfere with Omega. Eventually, the Doctor and Nyssa land back on Earth and try to find Tegan, and eventually they do, and they discover Omega has completed his plan, and he now looks like the Fifth Doctor. However, it's not stable, and he starts to turn back into antimatter, which leads to a chase through Amsterdam. There's actually a nice bit where Omega goes to have a look at a kind of a music theatre thing, and he smiles at a kid. And it looks like he's enjoying his new physical being until he realizes he's turning back into antimatter, despite the Doctor warning him. And the Doctor eventually has to kill Omega at the end, otherwise the whole universe will explode. Whether Omega will return is uncertain. He was able this time round after the 3 Doctors, so Omega could return. There is a Big Finish audio out there with Ian Collier that I got to listen to, and he was supposed to return in the K9 film, which I think is now becoming a brand new TV series, which may or may not lead up to the film. Yeah, the K9 Timequake stuff is a bit of a mess at the moment. And there may be other expanded media featuring Omega, excluding the Target novels, of course, because they're just basically 3 Doctors and Arc of Infinity again, but other stories. So it's possible Omega could return. We might even get to see him back in the new series, eventually. Maybe. And fun fact, this story is actually 10 years, more or less, since 3 Doctors, so it's actually the 10th anniversary of Omega. Nice. But I think the character is not quite as richly written or characterized in this story. Although I do think Ian Collier does a good job with the role, and I do look forward to seeing how he does it in the audio Omega. Although apparently that's a not so good audio. One of the very few I've heard. Oh dear, heard about. But the character's not really as rich, despite some harkbacks to him being the original, the saviour, etc. All the stuff mentioned in 3 Doctors or since. The character's not really as richly written as he was in 3 Doctors. Same for Borusa, which, by the way, every time we see Borusa on screen, there's always a different actor playing him. He keeps regenerating. For some reason, they're never able to... It's like Felix Leiter in the James Bond films, apart from on the 2 actors, that they're never able to bring back an actor who's played the character beforehand. Apart from with Felix Leiter, they got David Hennison back for a film, although they had someone in between on another one. And so that guy played him twice. And with the Daniel Craig Bond films, they've managed to have Jeffrey Wright in all 3 of his 3 Felix Leiter appearances. Well, the 3rd will be coming out next year, but they managed to have Jeffrey Wright in all 3 times the characters appeared in the Craig film. So, and the same is for not Rassilon, Borusa, or Rassilon the same, except this time round there's longer gaps between stories. Okay, not too much between End of Time and Hellbent, but there's enough time between gaps. Plus, Timothy Dalton was probably too expensive to come back, possibly. But every time we see Borusa on screen, there's always a different actor playing him. We had one in Deadly Assassin, 2 years later in Invasion of Time, we had another guy, and now it's been, that's 78. So it's nearly 5 years since we've seen him. We got another guy in, and this is January, I believe. January 83? Yeah, January 83. 10 months' time, we're going to see a 4th actor playing him. They literally couldn't keep the same actor for the fourth appearance. Okay, to be honest, actually having a new actor for the 5 Doctors makes a lot of sense. But they weren't able to bring back one of the older actors, the other actor from the last time, or the one before him for the second time. Yeah, it's not a problem, it's just something I noticed. It would have been nice to have the same Omega for 5 Doctors as it was here, but to be honest, for the purposes of that story, that actually makes sense. It's unlikely Boruto will appear on screen again, although there is the possibility of using him in the audios. And they'll probably get a guy in for that, and then, if we're lucky, multiple stories, if they decide to do that. But yeah, that's just something I've noticed. One actor who's playing a character here who will be back in Five Doctors is the guy playing the Castellan. So that's cool. He's going to be coming back. The other Time Lords will not be back in the Five Doctors. We're going to be one of them will be replaced by a Chancellor Flavia, and the other guy just won't pop up. And there's also the villain who's cooperating with Omega, who's actually kind of a really nice guy. When we don't see him in the villain light. And when we do, we then realise, oh, it's only part of his plan, but he's still pretty good guy, pretty nice guy. I mean, he's not good, but he's quite nice. Yeah, and he's played by Michael Gough, who played the Celestial Toymaker, so that's cool. Yeah, also, funny enough, this Toymaker was going to be the character in the audio that they were going to do before they changed it to Omega, because Michael Gough didn't want to come back for that story. I don't know if he did for the adaptation of the Nightmare Fair with which was based on a story that he was going to come back for in season 23 before Michael Grade cancelled the show for 18 months and they made Trial of Time instead. Thank you, Michael Grade. But Michael Gough certainly does a great job here, and he was quite a fun, enjoyable character. And the two boys, they're alright for what they have. I mean, it's more... The stuff in part one can be seen as a bit annoying, can be a bit unnecessary scenes until later on in the story, but in that case, they're forgivable. Okay, so Arc Infinity, and also Tegan rejoins the TARDIS at the end. I do also have to say, Nyssa is definitely getting into more of her own as a character here at this point, although she's starting to act a bit like, well, she's starting to scream a bit more with the Ergon here, and with some characters in Time Flight, so... Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to Nyssa. But I do like her coming into her own, being very protective of the Doctor and trying to help him, and very loyal. And also this other character who's a friend of the Doctor's, he's also really good as well. I like him. And Peter Davison has very much dedicated his role as the Doctor and also as Omega for the final episode. So that's really cool, apart from the voice when Ian Collins still did the voice. So, okay, overall, Arc Infinity is... okay, but yeah, not a strong one. This is another weak season opener, and it pales in comparison to the previous Omega story, The Three Doctors. That was a really good story and had some rich character charisma. Not to mention, I also prefer Stephen Thorne as Omega, but can you blame me? Stephen fucking Thorne, R.I.P. But Arc Infinity is okay. Honestly, I don't know if whether K9 Timequake would have been better or not. But if he ever comes out, we'll find out. But, okay, Arc Infinity, I've decided to give it a 5 out of 10. Yeah, it's I mean, I actually enjoyed Time Flight more. I do think this is a slightly stronger story, but I enjoyed Time Flight more. So it's actually quite considerate that they're both in the same box as each other, these DVDs, and they're right pretty much next to each other in terms of storytelling. Because I think this is probably the next place up above Time Flight, or roughly if done an overall story ranking, in my opinion. This would, if not next to each other, then this would be not that far up. But yeah, Arc Infinity, not very good. It's better story than Time Flight, but less enjoyable. At least it was, in my opinion. So that's my review of Arc of Infinity. Right, next time will be Snake Dance. Now, previously I recorded an ending of this review when I was reviewing the story, before I watched Snake Dance, and I was saying that I thought it was, well, shit. Potentially even worse than Kinder, which turned out actually not to be true, because I'd already given Kinder an even lower score than I thought I had, which was lower than Snake Dance's. But then I rewatched Snake Dance, and actually found it quite good. Mostly. So, Actually, I think Kinder's possibly my least favourite Fifth Doctor story at the moment anyway. We might see how the rest of Season 20 and Season 21 go. But certainly at the moment, Kinder is my least favourite at this point. But thankfully, we got a much better sequel. So next time, Snake Dance, which will not be shit. I mean, it's not Earthshock good, but it's good. So Snake Dance next, and my original ending will go into bloopers of the Arc Infinity review, and hence this new recording at the end. Right, I shall see you guys next time for Snake Dance. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. So anyway. Yeah, but the problem with the Chancellor Guards is that they shoot first, ask question, they ask question. Fuck. It's hokey. It's hokey storytelling and it's hokey visual editing. Hokey visual storytelling. And the crap Doctor Who stories continue. After Earthshock, you would have thought they would have done some good stuff. After Earthshock, Black Hawk, and Visitation, they'd be on a good streak. But no, we're onto a bad streak again. Because next time, Snake Dance. Which some people do like, maybe not as much as Kinder. But my God, is this a shit story. Or at least I find it, anyway. Fucking hell. Okay, let's get this one over and done with. Might watch it later and get it over and done with before we can move on to better things. Black Guardian Trilogy, 5 Doctors, not King's Demons. That's weak. But, you know, well, I honestly prefer King's Demons to Snake Dance. But anyway, Snake Dance next. I'll see you guys then. Goodbye. Now, I previously did a